In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro delves into the alarming political climate surrounding former President Donald Trump, particularly in light of two assassination attempts within 8 weeks. Shapiro argues that the media's response to these events has been strikingly dismissive of the gravity of the situation, instead shifting the blame onto Trump himself. He critiques the left-wing media, which he claims has consistently framed Trump as a unique threat to democracy, suggesting that their rhetoric contributes to the violence directed at him. Shapiro highlights the media's tendency to focus on Trump's rhetoric as the root cause of political violence, rather than addressing the actual threats against him. He posits that if a similar situation were to occur involving a Democratic figure, the narrative would be vastly different. The left, he argues, has cultivated a narrative that positions Trump as an embodiment of evil, leading to a dangerous mindset among some individuals who may feel justified in taking extreme actions against him. This, he claims, reflects a broader belief among some on the left that the removal of Trump would restore a sense of normalcy to American politics. Shapiro discusses the contrasting perspectives between the right and left regarding political rhetoric. He notes that conservatives often view leftists as misguided rather than inherently evil, while many on the left perceive right-wing individuals as morally deficient. This dichotomy complicates the discourse surrounding political violence, as the left tends to attribute violent actions to the rhetoric of their opponents, while the right believes that such actions stem from a misunderstanding of their views. The podcast also touches on the historical context of political violence in America, with Shapiro referencing past instances where left-wing figures have been targeted. He argues that the left's current narrative about Trump is not new. Similar accusations have been made against previous Republican leaders. However, he emphasizes that the intensity of the rhetoric directed at Trump is unprecedented, creating a dangerous environment. Shapiro provides details about the recent assassination attempts, including the profile of the alleged shooter, who was identified as a left-wing activist with a history of criminal behavior. He points out that this individual had expressed anti-Trump sentiments and had been flagged by authorities prior to the incident. Shapiro criticizes the security measures surrounding Trump, questioning why a full security detail has not been authorized, given the recent threats against him. The podcast also discusses the broader implications of these assassination attempts, suggesting that they reflect a failure of the political system to address the rising tensions in American society. Shapiro argues that the left's rhetoric, which often portrays Trump as a singular threat, contributes to a culture where individuals may feel compelled to take violent action. Shapiro critiques political leaders, including President Biden and Vice President Harris, for their responses to the violence. He argues that their rhetoric often exacerbates the situation rather than calming it. Biden's statements about the need for unity and the rejection of political violence are seen as hypocritical by Shapiro, who points out that the Democratic Party has historically aligned itself with movements that have engaged in violence, such as the Black Lives Matter protests. The podcast also highlights the disconnect between the rhetoric of political leaders and the reality of the political landscape. Shapiro suggests that the left's portrayal of Trump as a unique danger to democracy creates an environment where violence is more likely to occur. He emphasizes the need for a more measured approach to political discourse, urging leaders to recognize the potential consequences of their words. Shapiro concludes by discussing the implications of the current political climate for the upcoming election. He argues that the media's framing of Trump as a threat will continue to influence public perception and could have serious consequences for political discourse in America. The podcast serves as a call to action for listeners to critically evaluate the narratives presented by the media and to recognize the potential dangers of inflammatory rhetoric.